On today's episode of the Mark Titus Show, no lead is safe in college basketball. That is official after this week. We had last night, Wednesday night, was the night of comebacks. Florida was down 14, never led in the game until Will Richard hit a tough left-handed layup to beat South Carolina. South Carolina was they had one hand on the champagne bottle. Worst team in the SEC probably. 0-5 at least. They were at the bottom of the standings, hadn't won an SEC game, and suddenly you find yourself leading wire to wire against the number 5 team in the country, the Florida Gators, who at times have looked like the best team in the country. Unbelievable game from South Carolina, and then it all falls apart late, and Florida wins it in the end. A game that they had no business winning, but that's what great teams do. They find a way on the road. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the SEC, Texas A&M was down. I think they were down 6 with like 29 seconds left, and they ended on a 7-0 run. They were down 8 with like a little over a minute left. It was crazy. It was a game that was deader. They were deader than dead. It was over. They're playing a team in Ole Miss that does not turn the ball over. That is kind of Ole Miss's MO so far at this point in the season is one, they play great defense, but really the story's been, and we saw it against Alabama with Ole Miss, they take care of the ball and they force a ton of turnovers. And in this game, they had forced Texas A&M into 1 million turnovers, and they were taking care of the ball like they always do. And then down the stretch, they're throwing it all over the place. And two goaltend calls, and just an insane unraveling from Ole Miss. And Texas A&M, again, that's what the good teams do. They find a way to win. In Madison Square Garden, St. John's is down by 16 against Xavier. They come back to win in overtime. Just chaos galore across this sport. Chaos galore is what I'm saying on Wednesday night. And I haven't even brought up, Tate, the night before.
I was going to say.
A certain team out of Columbus, Ohio, going into Mackey Arena. Down by, what were we down, 16?
16, yep.
16 right before the half, and then hit a 3 to heading into halftime. We had a 20-2 run at one point, and then a 15-0 run at a different point. And Ohio State gets a big win at Purdue that has you and I fired up, certainly. But yeah, that was kind of the story of the week in college basketball. It was like massive comebacks all over the country.
Yeah, you can't do a college basketball podcast without mentioning a team went into Mackey Arena.
Mm-hmm.
So hey, our hands are tied here.
Our hands are tied. We don't want to do it. I say I don't want to do it, but
if you look at us right now, neither of us wants to talk about Ohio State.
I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know what to make of our team, but what a win! I don't know. It's been a very wild Ohio State basketball season, but a huge win in Mackey Arena against a very hot Purdue team. I don't know where I stand on the Purdue panic, but we'll get into it a little bit. I'll talk about the Purdue part of stuff because I think Purdue's really good. Mackey Arena was supposed to be one of the arguments for Purdue winning the Big Ten was that I just felt like it was going to be very hard for teams to go into that arena.
And it probably is. It probably is for
most teams.
Probably still hard
for most teams. Not for our Buckeyes, man. What a week to be a Buckeye. It was. There was a lot to talk about on that front as well. Big story though. It might be Dan Hurley. I mean, we have to spend a little time about talking about Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley just completely unraveling. In fact, I just want to get into the show. I want to get into the show because I don't. Yeah, let's just dive into the show. All right, programming note: no fraud power rankings today, and there's a very good reason why, and it's this: I'm in a good mood. I'm in a great mood. It is a great week to be an Ohio State alum. Football team won the national championship. Basketball team, like we said, went into Mackey Arena. Kind of, I don't want to say shocked the world, Tate, but I got to be honest. After we won the football national championship on Monday, I woke up Tuesday. I was so happy. I'm playing the fight song around the house. I literally woke up and put the fight song on all the speakers in the house, and I'm like,
love that. I'm
smiling. I'm cheery as can be. My wife, she's not a Buckeye. She's from Colorado. You know, I met her later in life, and isn't indoctrinated into the Ohio, but she's getting there. She's like, I've never seen you this happy. She's like, how long? This is awesome. She's like, you're so often miserable watching sports. And suddenly you're very fun to be around. And she's like, is this the new you? How long is this going to last? And I said, it's going to last about 12 hours because we play Purdue tonight
in Mackey Arena,
and we're going to get our dicks kicked in. And I'm going to be in a very bad mood after that. But like for now, I'm in a good mood. But that was like my mindset Tuesday was like, I'm going to enjoy this while I can. But honestly, I'm going to probably be in a bad mood tonight after Purdue beats us. We beat Purdue. I'm in a good mood. And the point of saying all of that is that I wasn't in a place last night when I was putting notes together the fraud power rankings come from a place of being a curmudgeon, from like me being a hater, me being it's mostly like I'm in such a bad mood watching my team that I'm going to try to pull everybody else down with me. You know what I mean?
Like if I go down, you're coming down.
You're coming down with me.
Right.
So yeah, sure, my team sucks, but like, guess what? All of you people suck as well. And that's kind of the whole point of the fraud power rankings. And then yesterday I was like, I'm in too good a mood to do this. So I want to, for the first time, what episode is this? What are we on? What's the number? 412?
163.
163? 162. Okay. So I've done over 160 episodes of this show. And for the first time ever, I think I want to do a positive vibes only show. I think I'm in such a good mood given the week of Ohio, and that is unusual for a lot of people probably turn the show off because like we come to you because you're a grump. We come to you. I'll never forget the time when I called Cody out on making a thumbnail for the YouTube, and I had just like a scowl on my face, and I was like, dude, that was the picture you chose, and he goes, I watched the entire episode. You never smiled once. And in my head, when I'm doing the shows, I'm having a good time and everything's fun. And I get done doing the show, and I was like, that was fun, man. What a fun show. And then he's like, yeah, dude, you didn't smile once. You're just a grump the whole time. And I was like, that must be my brand, I guess. I
got some bad news for you, Titus. So positive vibes only show, right?
Right.
I had a special guest surprise.
No shit.
I had someone ready to call. Danny Hurley was going to call today. And hold on, I'll text Danny and say, never mind.
No, sadly, it is a positive vibes only show, and we're only gonna say positive things about people. So yeah, let's do our best to do that, and let's start with Dan Hurley, that piece of shit, that fucking piece of shit, Dan Hurley. He's pissing me off so badly, Tate. This fucking guy, Dan Hurley. Now, if you're a UConn fan, you might be saying to yourself, why now? Why does it feel like this year people are turning on Dan Hurley? Dan Hurley has been consistent since he's come out of his mother's womb. He's been this way. Apparently, I don't know. I wasn't there to see it, but I'm going to assume this has just been how Dan Hurley has carried himself. It's not like 2 years ago Dan Hurley started being an asshole and people started noticing it. He was this way at UConn. He's been this way his entire career. So what is it about the college basketball fan that is now turning on Dan Hurley when it does feel like and maybe I shouldn't speak for everybody, but it does feel like the last couple years we said, ha, 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 isn't this kind of funny that Dan Hurley is so angry at the refs all the time and whatever else? Ha, 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 ha. And then this year it's like, get this fucking guy out of my face.
Everyone hates him.
Everyone hates him.
He's hearing it from the media. He's hearing it from the fans. He's hearing it from the announcers. My question to you is this, and you've been around the game for a couple years. You're saying Dan Hurley has been consistent. Mm-hmm. Are you telling me Dan Hurley of 5 years ago is telling the refs, don't turn your back on me. I'm the best coach in the fucking sport?
Just an insane quote. An insane quote.
I don't know if I like it or hate it because it's so despicable that I fucking love it. Like could you imagine being a coach and like, you're arguing, an over the back call and the ref runs down to the other side. He goes, hey, don't turn your back on me. I'm the best fucking podcaster in the game. He is not consistent, Mark. He's dragging his balls on the ground.
I think he is. I think he's finally got some success. And granted, it is, I'm downplaying the success. You won back-to-back national championships. That's incredible. But as I've said often about Dan Hurley, as I've said often about this UConn program, with this season and this team in particular, as we talk about, should they be favorites to win the national championship? How realistic is a national championship? Is it just UConn's national championship to lose until someone finally beats them? Dan Hurley has been coaching basketball for, I think he was a head coach at Rhode Island like in the late 2000s, 2009, 2010. I forget the timeline. He's been coaching basketball. He's been a head coach for 15 years, 20 years, something.
Yeah, he was at St. Benedict's till 2010. Then he went Wagner in 2010, Rhode Island.
Wagner, that's right. Wagner. And then Rhode Island was after Wagner. Dan Hurley has made 2 Sweet 16s.
You don't hear that much.
Dan Hurley has made the Sweet 16 exactly 2 times.
I love that.
Dan Hurley, the guy who's yelling at refs and saying I'm the best coach this sport has ever fucking suck my fucking. I mean, I'm aware that you've won the last 2 national championships. I'm aware that is rare. I'm aware that this is something that you should feel like you have a certain stature in the sport after you do this. But you know, the argument that maybe you're a Donovan Klingon merchant does carry some weight to it, I would say. Does carry some, like, I think I would like to see some sustained success. I would, especially, yeah, a lot of legends are stepping away from the game, but like, you know, your Bill Selfs are still out there.
Well, that's
your
what I was
Tom
gonna
Izzo's
say.
are still out there. You know.
There's people that have won 2 titles in their career. There's people that have made more than 2 Sweet 16s in their career. Who would you say before Danny Hurley was the greatest coach? Like, who were the best coaches? Because right now I do think when you've won 2 in a row, you are the best coach in the game.
Yeah.
Who are we talking about before that? Jay Wright?
Jay Wright and Self and
Tony Bennett.
Tony Bennett was in the mix. Roy, obviously.
Okay. Any
he
of those
retired.
4. And
Yeah.
would you say all 4 of those?
You're talking like just last year, or are you talking?
No,
like
I'm
the
saying
last,
like who are
5?
the best coaches in the past like decade?
Yeah,
Like,
Coach K, obviously.
could you see any of those and all of their resumes match up for sure with Danny Hurley talking like this or acting like this?
Coach K.
You think
Coach K, but not in that way. Coach K, come here.
I'm fine.
Coach
Yes.
K pulls the ref over.
But does the words
and
best
just-
coach in the fucking sport come out of Coach K's mouth?
Coach K pulls the ref over and whispers in his ear like "Hail Hydra" or whatever, and then, and then fucking whatever voodoo shit that Coach K says to these refs. But Coach K would never do it the way Danny Hurley did it. But what makes it worse, because I do think it is consistent. Like saying I'm the best coach in the sport, don't turn your back to me. Yeah, of course he hasn't said that really until this year. But I do think the Danny Hurley blowing up on refs is certain. That whole thing is certainly not new. So him losing his fucking mind and doing whatever he can to do to either 1, get the ref to give him the call that he wants, or 2, he says, fuck it, I'm not trying to get the call anymore. I just want you to know that you're a piece of shit and I hate you. But those seem to be like his 2 avenues. He's like, I want to work the refs so I get the calls. And then it gets to a point where he's like, okay, we're just not getting the calls. Then I'm going to kill you. You know, I think that's been consistent his whole career. What I feel like is becoming different or is becoming intolerable to the college basketball public is the part where, and we saw this with the Maui Invitational, where Dan Hurley pooped his diaper in Maui, and then in the press conference after a couple days, and we're like, Dan, you lost your mind. Like, wasn't that kind of funny? And he's like, no, it wasn't funny. It wasn't funny at all. In fact, we're never going back again. And I hate all of you, and I want to kill all. Like, and he has a lot of time to sit on it and think about it, and like, you know, take a deep breath, and he still doubles downs. Yeah. Doubles down.
He doubles down.
Doubles down?
He has doubles downs.
Hold on, what did I just say? That just broke my brain.
2 downs.
Can you you doubles down? He doubles.
you double down.
He doubles down.
He doubles down.
He doubled down.
He doubled down. God, dude, that was.
Or doubles.
And he did that with this, where he's in the press conference and they're like, "Coach, funny moment in this game. We're all laughing. We're all having a good time. You kind of got carried away there, and you said, I'm the best coach in the sport. You kind of want to – you just want to speak on that a little bit, Coach? Kind of a layup question for him to just be like, oh, did I say that? And then just laugh and then be like, yeah, man, heat of the battle, get a little carried away.
I have his answer here.
And then you move on. And I think that's a good way to handle it, and be like, hey, listen, you know, fog of war, as they say. Ha, 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 ha. And then everyone laughs. And then we move on, and it is what it is. He does the exact opposite. And what does he say?
So when asked why he said, I'm the best coach in the fucking sport, Danny's response was, well, I just wish they put the camera on the other coach more. The camera's on me 98% of the game, and I just wish that the camera was on some of the other coaches as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's not...
And then he said somewhere along the line, like, I'm not a victim, but...
Well, that's actually my favorite. That's where he continuously pisses me off and then wins me back with like the very last thing he says.
He's such a caricature that you have to sort of... You do just, at the end of the day, sort of laugh at it, but also...
It's like it's like saying something very rude and very mean for like 3 straight sentences and then saying, but no offense.
No offense,
He literally details how he is a victim of the cameras over and over and over again, and then goes, but I'm not a victim.
But I'm not a victim. But also...
Which he's not a victim. He said that.
Why do you think the camera's on you? The camera's on you because you're a fucking dickhead. And we know that there's an outburst coming. And sure enough, there is. But he keeps doubling down on all this stuff. And I don't know. I reached my breaking point with him where with the Maui Invitational stuff. I'm a Maui guy, and he's trying to end the Maui Invitational. I was like, fuck this guy. And you know, I think UConn is not that great, by the way. So I think that's as they come back from Maui and get some good wins, and as the season has progressed here, like I don't think this UConn team is exactly special. I don't think they play defense. They can play defense to save their lives.
Mm-hmm.
The offense is good. They run good sets, and they have versatile enough scorers, and solo ball can save it. He did against Butler. The game we're talking about, by the way, if you have no context, and this is for some reason, like, this show is your window into college basketball, and you have no idea what we're talking about. UConn beat Butler in overtime. And, the whole outburst happened during that game where the ref turns his back. Dan Hurley says, I'm the best coach in the fucking sport. Respect me, whatever. Butler's not good. Butler's not a good team. And they probably should have beat UConn on UConn's home floor. But UConn can't guard to save their lives. And, I don't think I think I've seen enough from UConn to confidently say they're not going to win the national championship.
Yeah, they're 35-1 right now. Which is like.
And that's based more on the teams from the past.
Right. They're getting that bump.
They're getting the bump from, like, you won it last year and the year before, where all the guys that were on, like, basically everybody that won those two championships has now moved on. Not literally everybody, but you know what I'm saying. Like, the bulk of the main, the core guys, like Caravan's like the one guy. So Dan Hurley finds himself in an interesting spot because, like, I think UConn is obviously one of the better programs in the country, and I don't think, like, UConn's going to fall off. They're certainly going to fall from the heights of winning the national championship every year. I don't mean to say that, like, that was it. You won two, and now you're irrelevant for the rest of time. But boy, snap of a finger, that head exploded. That head of his. Like, as a reminder, again, I'll say it one more time, and then we can move on because it is a positive vibes only show, and we're trying to. Not lob too many grenades at people. He's been to 2 Sweet 16. You were coaching for a very long time. Didn't really have much success to speak of. We're kind of like UConn wasn't bad. They were making tournaments. They were fine. It was whatever. It was just like they were just like a mid team. You pop in, you watch a few games, you turn up whatever. They weren't in the national discourse of college basketball. And then you win 2 national championships and that changes things, obviously, because you win 2 national championships, but that doesn't undo that, like, you're not like this consistently dominant coach and consistently dominant program. This iteration of UConn has not been consistently dominant. It's been great because you've had Donovan Clingham anchoring your defense. That's what people are saying. What people are saying.
So are you walking away from it? Because, like me, I still can't get in. Like, do you remember when they lost to Memphis and afterwards on that controversial over the back call? He's like, well, the Memphis player half-assed the effort.
Yeah. He's
box office with his quotes.
He's a good character. Yeah, for sure. He's good. He's good for the sport in that we can all. It's rare that you have a guy that you can hate and not feel bad about it. Like, I don't feel that because there are guys I like and don't like, and I have my reasons and it makes sense in my head. But sometimes I do the show and people are like, come on, man, how can you hate that guy? How can you? What all the, like, I mean, hell, like last year with Zach Edey was a good example. A lot of people were like, I've kind of seen enough from this guy. Like, I don't need to. And then Purdue fans are like, what the fuck, dude? Do you know how many kittens he saved this week? Like, do you know what this guy does? And how can you hate this guy? And it is ambiguous because you're like, listen, I don't know how to attack his character. I'm not, and I just don't like this part, but some of these parts I like. It's rare that you get a guy like Dan Hurley where you're just like, fuck this guy. Just fuck this guy. Yeah, and everybody's like, yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, they're the villains. Dan Hurley has made UConn's the villains of college basketball.
Yeah. Which is interesting because I think in Dan Hurley's mind, they are like the top dog and everyone's striving to be us. And that's certainly been the case the last 2 years, but it changes in a hurry. Mm-hmm. It absolutely changes in a hurry. And like, I don't know. I would prefer people not behave this way, but at the same time, I can't pretend it's not interesting. I can't pretend, But it does in the snap of it. Virginia won a national championship not too long ago, and Virginia is not good.
Yeah,
Virginia is not good.
When you win a championship, you got to keep the ball rolling.
Yeah,
and that's an allusion to our football team that next year will be not Michigan.
I think so. Can we talk? I mean, we should probably talk about the Ohio State Purdue game a little bit.
I have a question for you on that, and I want this to be an unbiased answer, if that makes sense.
Well, in the words of Kirk Herbstreit, I'm very objective. Mm-hmm. I'm extremely objective when I call these games.
And that's what you do.
So I will be objective. Go ahead. Unbiased. Go ahead.
Ohio State football, national championship.
Yeah.
Ohio State basketball goes into Mackey Arena and beats them.
Which is for me as a kid who grew up an Indiana fan, that is kind of like a national championship for me.
Well, and that goes to my question. At the end of the day, blind resume test. A national champion is crowned every year in football.
Yeah.
Every year.
Yep.
A team has not gone into Mackey Arena since in 2 years and won. So could you make the argument that the basketball Bucks win was actually, bigger than the national championship?
Yeah, you probably could.
Happens every 2 years.
Yeah. It was certainly more unexpected. I'll say that. It was certainly more stunning development. So the Ohio State part, I guess, we are a very confusing team. But also maybe not. Maybe it's not that confusing. It's just like maybe we're just a make shots team. Maybe it just comes down to that. Maybe a team that's constructed where like all the big guys are either undersized or like not as good as we were hoping they'd be. Maybe and we have a ton of guards even though Michi left the team and no one knows what the hell he's up to right now.
Hope you're doing well, Michi.
We are a very guard oriented team that's designed to make a lot of threes, and at the start of the season we were hitting them. We're not really hitting them as of late, but then in the second half against Purdue we got absolutely red hot, and Micah Parrish is hitting everything. We're hitting like shot clock buzzer beater through. Sean Stewart's catching the ball the second left on the shot clock and throwing it up and hitting a three. Parrish is like, I'm going to make everything, and then he does. Maybe it's just that simple. Maybe it's just like when we hit threes, we're good, and when we don't, we're absolutely fucked because we have nothing else to fall back on.
That's an astute analysis.
Maybe it's just that.
That was the conclusion I came to as well, that, the three best times we've looked this year would have been Game 1, Texas, where we shot the shit out of the ball. We beat Kentucky, and now when we shoot 50% from three at Mackey Arena.
Yeah.
My 2 cents on the Ohio State Buckeyes is if they shoot 50% from three, they can win.
Pretty good.
And if they don't, they can lose.
Micah Parrish was awesome.
6 of 8.
I just Parrish and Thornton and Mobley, like those three guys, when they're on, it's God. You buy into the dream, don't you? Don't you? Isn't it so easy to just be like, oh my God, Bruce is so. I don't know why I trust Bruce Thornton so much with the ball.
You love him.
I fucking love him, but he also like very obviously like doesn't. Maybe I got to be careful with my words. He's not like he's like a passive junkyard dog. Like I feel like he's got like a little bit of junkyard. Like but he's not outwardly a guy that's like grabbing the game by the neck and fucking taking control of a basketball game. But also he's just steady as can be. But then every so often he has boneheaded turnovers, so like that's a little confusing too. But I just trust like his demeanor, and I think he's so good. But then sometimes he disappears.
Right, that's where
and that's very
junkyard
frustrating.
dogs can't do that.
You can't do that, right?
He is consistent until he's not consistent. If
right.
That makes sense. And junkyard dogs have that mentality where it's like, hey, I'm not going to play Auburn and scoring 3 points.
Right.
You're not going to find me in the corner shying away, and that's where
that's what will drive you crazy. But yeah, against Purdue, like he was playing great defense. I mean, they got Braden Smith in foul trouble in the first half. He couldn't really get into a rhythm. Purdue is fascinating, man, because they are very obviously a good team. They're a team I think nobody's going to want to play.
Positive vibes only.
Positive vibes only.
They're
very good. We got to get back to the positive vibes.
And also
positive vibes
hype
only.
them up.
Hype them up.
No one. They're so.
Oh yeah. Purdue might be the best team in the country.
I agree.
think winning on the road
if
at Purdue.
Not Kentucky.
Yeah, if not, it's Kentucky. They don't have depth. That much is obvious. That Purdue is kind of limited with, and it's obvious because Matt Painter is one of the best coaches in the country, and he's like, you can tell by how many different lineups he throws out there, and how many like guys get a bunch of minutes one night and the next night they don't, and he's trying to figure it out. He's trying to figure out who he trusts. And it is confusing because I trust Matt Painter immensely, and I think Matt Painter is great at developing talent. He's great at finding guys that fit his culture and his program and all that. And for some reason, like guys like Cam Heide and Miles Colvin are two guys that I point to that I'm like, it doesn't compute with me that they're not better. That this year they didn't step into a bigger role and just like take that next step. And the opposite seems to kind of be happening, especially with like Colvin. Colvin's the one I can't get a read on at all because like I think he's got all the physical tools, and I think he should be so good. And he went to the right program to become good. And I don't know what's like not connecting or why it's not really working out. So anyway, I think Purdue is I think Trey Kaufman-Renn and Braden Smith are you could make an argument that they are the number 1 and number 2 best players in the conference.
They'll probably have 2 of the 5, first team all conference players, but they are no longer, I think, in this. I don't know. They're
no longer in the Big Ten champion window or the
I don't want to say they're just out, but they're not right now.
Yeah, no, they probably are out. They probably because I don't think they have the top end talent other than those 2 guys who are also not like NBA level players. So and then the other problem, like if you're going to be a team like this that relies heavily on just like your top guys have to be. And Braden Smith is probably the best point guard Purdue's ever had. And Braden Smith I fucking love the kid. I've loved him since I have a love-hate relationship with a lot of things with Purdue, but I'm pretty consistent that like Braden Smith, the second I saw him, I was like, this guy's so fucking awesome. He's going to be there for 4 years. He's not an NBA. He's not going to be a long-term NBA veteran, and Trey Kaufman-Renn is the same thing. So if you're a team that relies heavily on those 2 guys and you have national title aspirations, they have to be like lottery picks, right? Like that's what conventional wisdom will tell you. The real issue I have right now with Purdue that I think Purdue fans are starting to notice, the last few games especially, is their 3-point shooting, which is to say they're not even really shooting threes. They're scared to take threes. They only want to shoot, like their entire roster right now only wants to shoot when they're wide open on like penetrate and kick, and they got so accustomed, this is my theory, they got so accustomed to guys throwing doubles at Edey that the ball would swing around and then they would get wide open looks, that's kind of the 3 that they're waiting on. And they're not getting those because Kaufman-Renn's been great, but he's not Zach Edey. He's not commanding double teams like Zach Edey. You're not going into a Purdue game saying like we are absolutely fucked if we can't figure out this Trey Kaufman-Renn situation, which is what you were doing with Purdue the last couple of years. And I think that's becoming a problem for Purdue. Is like Lawyer is their shooter, quote unquote. He's like the knockdown guy. He's not really a create his own guy. Although he can score off the bounce a little bit, but he's not a create his own 3 guy. Braden Smith is a great ball screen player, but he's not hunting for threes off of ball screens. He's hunting to get to the mid range and shoot that fadeaway Chris Paul 15-footer. That's his shot, or to dump it off on a short roll to Trey Kaufman-Renn, and that seems to be every single ball screen is like one of those 2 things, which is sort of unstoppable in the sense that like both of those guys, those 2, like Braden Smith was not hitting those. He got out of rhythm a little bit, and he was long on some of those shots. But that ball screen, like 15-footer fadeaway, Braden Smith and if you give that to him 100 times in a game, he's going to take it 100 times, and you're probably fucked because he's more often than not going to make it. We were lucky that he was in this game. And Trey Kaufman-Renn, same thing on that short roll. I feel like that's all they drill. But having said that, Tate, the issue is that every single team in the Big Ten and every single team in the country does in fact watch film and sees what I see, which is like, you guys are great at that, but like what else are you actually great at? And that's going to be an issue for Purdue moving forward. And I don't know. I feel like they are like a Sweet 16 caliber team, and no Purdue fan went into this season saying like, man, we almost won the national title this year, but that's okay because this year's team's going to get us over. Like no Purdue fan was like, we're going to win the national championship. But there was a moment there where they smoked Alabama. I think Marquette then humbled them pretty quickly after that. But there was kind of in the non-conference, there's like a calibration going on of like how good is Purdue actually? Because like we said, they have 2 guys that are first team All Big Ten probably. And I think now I've seen enough to say that like Sweet 16 might be the ceiling. But at the same time, they are a team that obviously have guys that have been around the block and have a lot of experience. And having 2 guys, even if they aren't top end lottery pick talent, having 2 guys that are as good as those 2 is scary.
Yeah, something just doesn't seem to add up because in my opinion, and you're right, you could make an argument that they have the top 2 college basketball players in the Big Ten right now. They also have the number 1 culture in the Big Ten. You could also say, make an argument. Tom Izzo's at Michigan State as well. They might have the best coach in the Big Ten.
Best coach, best home atmosphere right now in the Big Ten. Yeah,
so
they have a lot of things going for them.
So if I told you all those things, I said you're going to have the best coach, you're going to have the best atmosphere, the best home court advantage, you're going to have the best culture, winning tradition, and I'll give you the 2 best players. You win the conference.
You win the conference, yeah.
You win the conference.
Yeah, but then if you watch enough Purdue, you're like, this team isn't. They've been on a tear, and it's easy to say this after you lose, and I don't want to overreact to, they lost the game, so now let's say they suck, and then now if they win, let's say they're good. I don't want to do that. But if you watch them enough, they don't really, as a team, as a unit, as a collective, it doesn't jump off the screen at you as like this team is special. Yeah, and I think that's kind of like when you watch Illinois and Michigan State feels like a better version of Purdue. That's just like deeper, and Illinois has like way more talent to me than Purdue does. And that's kind of where I'm at with the Michigan. Kind of feels similar to Purdue. I will say, just in like
they
being
play on Friday. Like tomorrow.
Just in like being top heavy, like being a very obviously good team, but also by being a good team, you're just kind of relying on. Like if your best player isn't great, you're kind of fucked. Whereas like Michigan State, I don't think that's the case. I think Michigan State, they could have 2 or 3 starters at bad games. That's a huge advantage. They're just like, yeah, we'll figure this out. But yeah, Purdue has become a very fascinating team for me because they're obviously good. Braden Smith is one of the best point guards in the country, but he got in foul trouble and got out of the rhythm against Ohio State. And Trey Kaufman-Renn had like 20. He was dominating us in some ways, but also it's sort of. I don't want to say it's like empty calories, but there's like he's kind of like you don't even when he scores, there's no part of you that's like, God, we got to figure out an answer for this guy. But he's also like putting up insane numbers. So is that just me being disrespectful? I don't know. He doesn't really have. It's just that short roll, dude. That's like the only thing the only thing that terrifies me about him is the pick and roll game with Braden Smith. But like he can score on post moves, but he doesn't really have a ton of post moves. Mm-hmm. He's more of a like offensive rebound and put it back up type guy. His post moves are limited, but at the same time he plays his ass off and he's very productive. They're just like a weird team because they're obviously good, but they're not. But they're obviously flawed. Yeah, that's what I would say. They're obviously good, but also obviously flawed.
Well
like where does that land? And that's part of the reason I love college basketball is for teams like this Purdue team is like it's not always neat, and you can't always just like put a team in a box. And that's how I feel. That's how I feel about the Purdue. But I was going to pull some stats because I
have one here as well. Your hypothesis of they're used to getting the wide open threes because they're playing with Edey. It adds up. They are a top 20 team in the country in 3-point percentage. Mm-hmm. So they're making threes, but they are also outside of the top 200 in threes attempted per game.
I was going to look up their threes attempted because they only shot 9 against Ohio State. And I think they did the same on I think they weren't really shooting a ton on the West Coast trip they just took. Like their last few games, they have just not been shooting. They played Oregon before. They had the big win at Oregon. They were 2 for 12 from 3. They were 2 for 12 from 3 at Oregon, which that was a case of not shooting them and not making them. But they still won. They're winning these games. And then at Washington, what did they do at Washington? Let me pull that up. I thought it was something similar. 3 for 13. Yeah. So they were 5 for 25 in the 2 games leading up to the Ohio State game, and then they shot 9 against Ohio State. And I think there's something like mental going on of like we're not shooting a ton, we're not really making a ton. And what does that offense look like if Fletcher Lawyer's like not shooting threes? What is he doing out there?
Well, they're 254th in the country in threes shot per game at 21. But the problem is since they've gotten into Big Ten play, like their last 5 games, 11 per game. Yeah. So something is changing where. Maybe it's the scouting, like you said. Like the Big Ten is probably the most well coached. We have good coaches. The Big Ten well scouted. Yeah,
well scouted. But there is a lot of. I'll say about the Big Ten, there is a lot of familiarity, which you'd say like every conference is that way. But I do think that especially the old Big Ten coaches and like Jake's year 1, but he's been on Holtman's staff and Painter's been there for a while and Izzo's been there for a while and Greg Gard has been at Wisconsin for a while and also he was Bo Ryan's assistant. There's just a lot of like I don't want to say the Big Ten has the best coaches, but there's guys that have been around for a while in the mix. That's not true at every school, obviously, but there does seem to be a lot of familiarity with the program. So maybe there's something to that. I don't know, but yeah, Fletcher Loyer's shooting 46% from three, and yet I feel like he's not a threat at all.
I feel like
he's not like you're not going into a game against Purdue like worried about Fletcher Loyer hitting like 6 threes on you.
It's the Moneyball scene where it's like, hey, what's the one flaw? We make a shit ton of threes. What's the one flaw? We don't shoot.
We don't shoot them. Yeah. And that's where we're at with Purdue. St. John's is winning the Big East right now. St. John's is 8-1. They're rolling. That was awesome. That was a fun game to watch last night, man. Watching Madison Square Garden popping off and St. John's just throwing that press and making the comeback and just forcing turn Pitino ball. Mm-hmm. Just watching the press working and I don't know. I was like, damn, I miss this. I miss this in my life.
Good for ball.
It's great for ball. I love that Madison Square Garden is in the mix and it got me excited for the Big East tournament because St. John's is right now. If I had that right, I know they're at the top.
They are.
I think they're at the top alone.
They're 8-1.
They're 8-1, and then Marquette's 7-1. Yeah, I was gonna
co-favorites right now in DraftKings Sportsbook to win it.
I think as I've been thinking about the Big East, it's been Marquette has been the best team. When Marquette has been at their best, they've been the best team. If that makes sense. Like Marquette's been the team that's
their best is the best.
Marquette's been the team that's wowed me the most. I think Marquette has the best player in the conference, although St. John's would be like Kadary Richmond is not bad. Villanova would say
Dixon.
What about Eric Dixon? There's a lot of good players, but Cam Jones is my favorite. I think I've been focusing a lot on Marquette. I've been focusing a lot on UConn, and like we're trying to figure out how good UConn actually is. Creighton is surging, and like they were dog shit in that feast week, and I don't know if it was the whole non-conference, but it was they definitely had a bad stretch right around Thanksgiving, and then now all of a sudden Creighton's surging, and I don't know if they're gonna compete for the actual. I don't know if they're good enough to actually win the league, but like suddenly we got to take Creighton seriously again. Villanova's been an interesting story in the Big East because Kyle Neptune was going to get fired, and then Eric Dixon is leading the country in scoring and playing like an All-American and saving his job, and that's kind of fascinating. The resurgence of DePaul that maybe isn't quite a full-blown resurgence, but like. DePaul gave Marquette a good game, which is kind of stunning, which is almost a winner in its own right. There have been a lot of good stories in the Big East, or a lot of things to keep an eye on. Georgetown's another great example of a team that we laughed at Ed Cooley when he went to Georgetown, and Providence won that divorce, and you dumb bitch Ed Cooley, and then now it's like, I don't know, Georgetown's not that bad, and Providence is not that good. And I say all that to say that St. John's was a team that I think preseason I said was going to the Final Four.
You did.
They were one of my Final Four picks. They have a ton of talent. You want to talk about the best coach in the country. I think an argument could be made. I have a hair in my face. Hang on. I don't know where that came from. I think an argument could be made that Rick Pitino is pound for pound, and I'm not really fully sure what that phrase means.
Are you talking literally or figuratively?
I don't know. It's just something you say when you start to doubt your argument.
Yeah.
For being honest,
do we need to bring their weights into this?
That's something you say when you doubt the argument. You're pretty sure, yeah. Because you feel like you're about to say something, and you're like, is that too bold of a statement? Let me just throw pound for pound in there. Rick Pitino might be the best college basketball coach of all time, and I mean that seriously. Whoa. I think Rick Pitino, when you look at the especially the Louisville run, the talent that he had, which is it's always hard to talk about that because. I mean, I kind of just did it with the Purdue guys. Like, I'm not shitting on the players. They were good players. Mm-hmm. But Pitino was not Calipari and Coach K, just a revolving door of 5 stars.
Okay.
And he was – his culture and his system and when you give that guy – he's one of the guys that you'll frame it this way. He can. I heard Fran Fraschilla say this on air like 10 years ago, and I became obsessed with the phrase that he can beat you with his guys, and then you could switch guys, and he'll beat you with your guys. Like he's one of those coaches. He's like the number one coach for me that applies to, if that makes sense, is Rick Pitino, and I think I might mean that all time. I think he is like. He is the one guy throughout the course of college basketball history that I think he could have been hired anywhere, and he would make that program good. And now he's at St. John's, and he has, I mean, just great athletes. He gets Kadary Richmond in the portal, and he's been awesome for them. And I don't know. And for some reason, I think like what was the loss? They lost to Georgia. I remember.
Well, yeah.
Maybe that was when that put me off of St. John's for a little bit, and then they lost to Creighton not too long ago. But I thought they were going to be Final Four good. I thought. I have immense respect for Pitino, and somewhere along the line, I lost my finger on the St. John's pulse,
Mm-hmm.
and last night I was watching the game and I was like, St. John's is fucking awesome.
Yeah, they're 17-3
awesome.
right now, and they're 3 losses. So they lost in November 99-98 in double overtime to Baylor on a neutral court. That's not the worst thing to ever happen in the beginning of the season.
They did choke that away. That was in Bahamas, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and I watched that game. Yeah, they choked that one away.
A couple days later, they lose to Georgia by 3. But looking
Yeah.
back, that is not as – Georgia has proven to be a solid, whatever team. And then going to Creighton, which is tough to do.
And they lost by 1. They've lost 3 games by a combined 5 points, and one of them was in double overtime.
Now, the one thing I would push back on, Mark, is do you see a reason that they could make the Final Four based on their wins? Not the quality of their losses, but they haven't.
Not a ton of wins, but not a ton of. Yeah, there's the best win that they have. If we're doing a resume look, is it might have been last night. I don't love. I mean, they swept Xavier, so it'd be at Xavier, but I don't love that they were down by 16 to Xavier. The offense can be pretty gross at times. They can't shoot threes to save their life, which seems to be a problem in modern basketball. But the Rick Pitino press, when it's rolling, is a thing of beauty, man. It is. Their defense is there's so much buy-in, and it's just like so much chaos, and it makes college basketball fun because it's something I say often, but I mean it, that what I love about college basketball is that you have a guy like Rick Pitino that's like the best way to win basketball games is to press and incite chaos into the game and just make the other team shit their pants.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have guys that are like the best way to win in these college basketball game is to walk the ball up the floor, grind it out. We need six crisp passes at least on every single possession.
Mm-hmm.
We need to move the ball one side, we got to get to the other side, and then the other side, and then we're going to look to shoot. And those coaches might be right. And there's coaches that think somewhere in between, and we should push tempo, and we should rebounding is the most important part. Like, the only way to win basketball games, you got to dominate the boards.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to win basketball games, you got to dominate the three-point shooting. You got to force, like Chris Beard, Ole Miss's whole thing. We're forcing turnovers. We're not committing turnovers. That's going to be our MO. I love that, like, all these coaches have their different styles, and a lot of them do work. And yeah, and I miss Rick Pitino in my life, coaching meaningful basketball. And this St. John's team is at the top of the Big East standings. They have serious juice to the program right now. And Kadary Richmond, like that, at the end of the day, like, it's not just like the press and the idea and the mystique of Madison Square Garden and all that makes you buy into St. John's. They do have a guy who, when he's on, is among the best players in the country and can do basically everything there is to do on a basketball.
So do you stand by because you predict him at the beginning of the season, which a little bit out of left field, I would say, but as you have seen them play, would you still continue to take them? Like, the matchups in the tournament will be interesting. They're going to press the shit out of teams. If they get a draw where that can affect the teams they're playing, could you see them making a trip to the Final Four?
Oh yeah. For sure. Yeah. That's because that press is like, especially on a quick turnaround, you play
That's
like
true.
a Thursday, Saturday, and you play your first round game, and then the second round game you got St. John's on the Saturday, and you had 48 hours to prepare for the game.
I'm heading over to Bracket Matrix right now. What do you think they are?
St. John's?
Yeah.
They're probably 4 or 5 seed, 6 seed maybe.
I don't like this.
Because the wins hurt them.
Hasn't been updated since the 21st, so 2 days ago.
Okay.
They've got him as a 7 seed.
A 7 seed? They'll be better than that. Well, their schedule hasn't been the toughest schedule, and they kind of have the Houston problem where they're beating everybody except the good teams they're playing. Like the 3 best teams they played, they have lost to.
Mm-hmm.
But then they're stacking up a ton of wins. But also their schedule is more backloaded, I would say. Like you have Marquette coming up twice, you have UConn coming up twice.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll learn some stuff. By the way, Houston playing Kansas this weekend. It's about to get very real for Houston. By the way,
what do you mean by that?
Well, we're about to find out a lot about Houston because their schedule gets very serious, and Houston is a team that the computers love because I've made that point before. They trounce the bad teams, just beat the fuck out of them. They did it last night. They beat Utah. I think Utah had 36 points or something. I think they won 70-36. Was it?
Yeah, that knocks them out of our championship.
Utah's been knocked out, but they beat Utah 70-36. And you see scores like that, and you're like, is Houston the best team in the country? And then you want to poke holes in their resume. You're like, wait a second, they have. I think I saw a stat today that they have 0 quad 1 wins right now, and we're almost to February.
That's not good.
But they do play in the Big 12, and they're about to. They got Kansas, at Kansas, at West Virginia, Texas Tech at home. Those are the next 3. They got to go to Arizona. They play Iowa State. They play Kansas again.
We're gonna find out.
It's about to get serious with Houston. But R.J. Lewis for St. John's, incredible scorer. Ejiofor had a great game last night. He's a good big dude for that. Like I like the roster. Like I've been talking about Kadary Richmond so much, and R.J. Lewis is their leading scorer. He's the guy that makes the offense go in that regard. But Kadary Richmond he does everything for him, so he's their best player. But I think they have talent. I think you give Rick Pitino talent. That's all you need. Rick Pitino plus talent equals success, as it turns out. And St. John's has it, and they're currently leading the Big East. And I think the Big East is going to be fascinating in a way that I think going into the season, I was unsure if it would be. I was unsure how fascinating the Big East would be. As the season started, I thought, and UConn kind of fell off a cliff. The Big East, as a reminder, bad non-conference. Kind of a bad non-conference for the Big East. UConn had their problems in Maui. Creighton had a dreadful stretch there in Feast Week, but they were out were they out in Vegas? I think they were out in Vegas. I think Creighton was one of those Vegas teams. There was like 6 tournaments going on in Vegas during Feast Week, and I think Creighton was in one of them.
The Players era, yeah.
The Players era. They lost to Nebraska, San Diego. Yeah, there it is. Nebraska, San Diego State, Texas A&M. The Big East was St. John's lost their 2 games in the Bahamas. But there for a second, I was like, Marquette is going to run away with this thing. And now, we're far enough into the Big East schedule that I'm like, this is about to get real, man. This is fun.
We started the beginning of the season, and you felt that UConn, the gap between the first and second place team in any conference, the largest one was coming from perhaps UConn to
the field,
to the field. Then we come back from Maui, and it felt like Marquette.
It's actually Marquette
in the field. And now we're looking at it now, and I mean, if you told me Marquette, St. John's, even Creighton or UConn could win,
I think it's those 4, because it does fall off after that. Like Villanova's better than we thought from the start of the season, and Georgetown is having a good year for them. But yeah, it does fall off a cliff a little bit. But the top becomes very fascinating, and I would like to see St. John's win it.
That'd be cool.
Awesome. That'd be very, very
best
cool.
coach of all time, you said.
Dude, invented the 3-point shot. That's a fact.
That's tough to argue.
He was the first guy to endorse that's the way he'll tell it. He's like, I invented the 3-point shot. The 3 came along, and I was like, we should shoot more of these. We should. Why are we not shooting 3s? They're worth more than 2s. What else do I want to talk about? Texas A&M is a fascinating team to me as well. Last night, that was I think that was more of a choke from Ole Miss than a win for Texas A&M. Texas A&M was not playing. Wade Taylor was not good. They did not have a good game. But yeah, like I said at the top, like you find a way to win these games, man. That's
road.
A huge win because Ole Miss was. I said it after they beat Bama. I kind of tipped my cap and was like, hey man, I haven't been paying enough attention to Ole Miss. I knew they were going to be good. I knew they were going to be relevant. I knew they were going to be a tournament team. I didn't actually think that they had the chops to compete for an SEC championship. But then I kind of talked myself into I don't expect them to. They're still going to need a minor miracle. But maybe we should throw them in the group of when you're talking about Auburn versus the contenders. Ole Miss I wasn't even putting them in a contender pile. And I was like, yeah, fuck it, throw them in there. Throw the way they're playing defense right now, throw them in there. So they've been playing great basketball, and to see them become what they haven't really been all year and just kind of unravel down the stretch was wild. So yeah, kudos to Texas A&M. Made for a fun night of basketball. Made for a fun night, man. The comeback, the Florida game was crazy. Florida played like dog shit. Florida was letting South Carolina do whatever they wanted, and Florida, I still. I like that they won the game, obviously. I do think there's value to that, even though, if you wanted to overreact, and if this was like college football, you'd be like, Florida barely escaped one of the worst teams in the conference. They're a fraud. But basketball doesn't work that way. We've hashed that point out before. You kind of have to throw away your 3 worst performances. And ultimately, if you win the game, that's kind of all that matters to me. But there are some concerning trends with Florida where I watch them play defense sometimes, and I've said that before. I don't fully trust that they're all the way bought in. And then some of the shot selection from the guards is a bit like we need to take Florida and Purdue need to get into a room together and have a long discussion about shot selection. And then I think it will solve both of them. They need to pull each other to the middle, if that makes sense. Like Florida needs to get Purdue and be like, you guys should be shooting way more tougher shots. And Purdue needs to be like, no. Take it easy. Only shoot when you're open. And then
Meet in the middle.
I think it would help them both.
Yeah, we talked about early in the season, as they were just undressing teams. They were just winning every game by double digits. They had the most talented backcourt in the country, but you're saying that maybe their confidence in how good they are and the shot selection.
I still think if Florida won, if I'm doing teams that can win the national championship, teams that can't, I'm putting Florida in the group that can. I think Florida is national championship good. I'm not stepping back from that. I'm just saying there are a few cracks in the dam that are showing, and I think defensively you're going to have nights where guys are hitting shots on the other team and you can't kind of do anything about that. And there are even the best defenses can look bad at times, but they're just the way that they give up easy buckets at times does not speak to me as a team that's like fully locked in for 40 minutes. And that's kind of understandable because it's a long season. And I think if you're trying to be an optimist with Florida, you're like, when it's time to lock in, they'll lock in. And maybe they did that against South Carolina. Maybe they're like, oh shit, we're down. We're down to a team that hasn't won a conference game. Maybe we should start playing now. And then they flip the switch. I think that can work, but I get weary if you are a flip the switch team too much. If that becomes your identity. And Florida's not even close to being there yet, but I'm starting to see it a little more. I saw it with Missouri in the first half, because Missouri's going nuclear in the first half. And again, there's not really much you can do about Caleb Grill just hitting fadeaways, and you're kind of playing good defense. And you look to the bench, you're like, Coach, I had a hand in his face. I don't know. You just kind of hit a tough shot. Kind of nothing you can do about that. But they were also giving up just like one back screen. The guy gets hit, the other guy doesn't call it out, get a layup, and then they look at each other with their palms in there. They're like, whoa, what was that? And I think. And then in the second half, Florida did flip a little bit of a switch and try to come back and almost won the game against Missouri. I'm noticing a little bit of a pattern with that, and I don't want to that's not an official take yet. That's just like
something to keep an eye on.
Something to keep an eye on. We're putting it in the oven. We're monitoring that situation.
Ever since they beat Tennessee by 30, they're not playing good basketball. But like you said, all you look at is the record and the wins and losses. But they beat Arkansas by 8, then they lose to Missouri at home. Then they beat South Carolina by 1, and it's just it's something to keep an eye on. It's getting tougher for Florida. It's just getting
which is understandable. It's a long season. I didn't expect Florida to beat every team by 20 like they were at the start of the year. What else?
Hey, shout out to first-year coach at his school, John Calipari, his first SEC win of the year.
Oh yeah, we got to talk about that. He finally got an SEC win. Boogie Flan's out. That sucks.
Yeah.
That's a bummer for Arkansas. Yeah, he's just done and he's probably just gonna go pro now, huh?
Yeah, it's like you're hurt and then just start prepping for the draft.
That sucks.
That actually sucks. But is that a death sentence for him?
I don't think he's gonna die. No.
Oh no, I actually wasn't.
I think it's just
talking
his
about.
Hand. I think it's just he's got a hand injury. I don't think they're gonna kill him.
Miscommunication. I was actually talking about Arkansas's basketball team.
Okay.
Figuratively, they were already playing poorly.
You weren't talking about Boogie Flan's life.
I don't think that he's going to pass. We're on the same page on that. But they're now 12-7, 1-5 in the SEC, and firmly out of the tournament if it was today.
Oh yeah, yes.
But the thought was that he could maybe play his way back into it. But then you take away your most talented player. Are we just washing our hands and we'll see you next year, Arkansas? Or
I kind of am, but then, I don't know. Maybe there's the Georgia's a good team, and they finally got a win in SEC play last night. So maybe there is some sort of short term. I hate when this happens on the show. A phrase enters my brain, and then I'm not really sure if it's the right one. Look up dead cat bounce. Why did that enter my brain? There's something. I think it's I think
small
it describes
brief recovery in the price of a declining stock. So
I was right. I think Arkansas is nosediving, but there might be a little bit of a bet. There might be a
dead cat bounce.
The dead cat bounce for Arkansas, where Like they're losing their best player, and they lost 5 in a row. But then they won last night, and maybe the rest of the guy, like Diarra, is going to play looser, and like maybe John L. Davis is like, I get the ball in my hands more now. I'm going to ball out a little bit, and maybe it's like something where they're not going to be able to sustain that for the rest of the season. But what if they do? What if they do look in the short term like a little bit better, just because of the dead cat bounce?
Sorry, I stopped listening to you so dead cat bounce. I'd never heard of it. I taught language arts for 10 years, so thank you for.
The
phrase.
I don't know where I pick up. Like this is, and the real problem I have as a guy that gets paid to talk for a living. I don't have any confidence in them. Like they just kind of like exist in my brain. Like I read something somewhere and then it just like sticks in my brain.
I'll break that one out on.
And then I'm live on the air and I got lights and a camera and a microphone in front of me and I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna pull dead cat bounce.
Well,
and then I'm like ready to do it and I'm like, what am I doing? Well, that's my inner monologue.
As you're talking Arkansas basketball, I'm realizing in my brain that's one of the most morbid expressions. So it's a financial market metaphor. And I Google what's the origin, and the origin is from the idea that even a dead cat will still bounce if it falls from a great height.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's
a great point. Arkansas is in the middle of a dead cat bounce.
Cat bounce, dude. Maybe. I mean, Arkansas has a ton of guards on their roster. Obviously, they have. That's if there's one thing you point to and say, Arkansas at least has that as a positive. It's a positive vibes only show, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say the one good thing about Arkansas is they have a lot of individually talented guards that theoretically, if they were on other teams, could put up monster numbers, right? But they're all on one team, and the pieces haven't really fit perfectly together this year. So maybe you remove – yes, Boogie Flynn is probably their best player. Mm-hmm. You remove him, it feels like they're going to be in a disaster situation because they're not even that good with him. Mm-hmm. But maybe it's a positive – I don't even know if I believe this. It's just a positive vibes only show, and I'm trying to find the silver lining. Maybe the pieces will fit better now. Not to say that it's Boogie Flynn's fault, but it's that, you have DJ Wagner and John L. Davis and Thiero and Adu Thiero, who's their leading scorer. Maybe those three guys, their roles step up, and it actually works a little better, and Calipari doesn't have to figure out where the ball is going to go on any given possession. And
going off the positive vibes only for this team, I would say that if I wanted to look at the glass half full, we're talking about Ohio State as a team that has a lot of losses, some losses we really don't like, but they have 2 now crown jewels, and that's why we're saying, hey, this should be a tournament team. This should be a tournament team. Arkansas has the ability, with the schedule that they play, to still pick up a couple crown jewels on their resume. Like they're 12-7. They really don't have, their losses. What's their worst loss? LSU. But other than that, every single loss is to a tournament team. Mm-hmm. And they still have the ability to play Kentucky, Alabama, Auburn. They play Texas twice. They can pick up some wins that I think you could argue and say, hey, this team.
And this is why we do the positive vibes only show, because I think a lot of people would look at that schedule and say Arkansas's fucked. They're going to lose all those games. They're playing a lot of really good teams coming up, and they're going to finish the season with 20 losses. But this is a positive vibes only show, and we see those as opportunities.
Yeah, when they go to College Station and then they turn around and go to Auburn back to back, that's 2 great opportunities for the Razorbacks.
I was gonna say, yeah. I was just making sure I was right about that. Trayvon Brazil makes me sad. I was just going to say that.
Why so?
But it's positive vibes only. I didn't want to say it. But Trayvon Brazil, I watched him in Maui a couple years ago, and it was before he tore his ACL. I think he tore his ACL. He tore up his knee. He had a season-ending injury. I think it was ACL. He looked like he was maybe going to be the best player in the country someday. Like he looked like, or we probably wouldn't even find out because it was like, oh my God, this guy's going to be a lottery pick. And he was so fucking good. He was on like the Anthony Black Arkansas team. He was so versatile, could hit threes, could play, had long arms, was blocking shots, was getting up and down the floor. Like you saw the vision with that guy. And it's one of those things that like, on the one hand, I'm happy I was there to witness it because it was, probably the best he's ever played. Like the stretch earlier in that season was like the best he's probably ever looked. So it was like, that's cool that, seeing guys like that ball out and like it sticks in your mind. Like that's part of what makes college basketball fun is like, I'll remember that forever. But it fucks me up, Tate, because I still see him on a roster and I'm like, that guy is oh my God, Arkansas has Trayvon Brazile coming off the bench. I said that in the preseason. I was like, they're bringing John L. Davis and Trayvon Brazile off the bench. They're going to be so good, and he just doesn't play. They just don't really do it. Like he plays. What's his minutes per game? He is averaging right now 18 and a half minutes per game. He's averaging 18 and a half minutes per game.
He had the best player in the country type.
I mean, I overreact. That's what I do.
Right.
But when you see a guy on a certain stage playing super well, and he's 6'9", 6'10", he could shoot threes. I don't know. The vision was there. I'll just put it that way. As a scout, I was like, the vision is I could turn this guy into something. If I'm an NBA GM, I was like, I can turn this guy into something. I don't even think it was just me. I do think he was like on draft boards, and there was a real fear that he was going to leave early for the draft, and then he tore up his knee. And I don't know if that's the reason. I don't know if it's like Cal doesn't like him. I don't know what's going on, but I just remember seeing him in Maui Invitational. I maybe was wrong. In fact, like let me look up his Maui Invitational tournament log or his the game log from that tournament. Maybe he wasn't as good as I thought he was, but I remembered him balling out and thinking.
This would have been in 22, 23?
Yeah, it was like the Jordan Walsh, like Anthony Black. I think Nick Smith was on the team. I can't remember if he was healthy or not. That Arkansas team was just
his first two games, he had 20 and 9, and then he had 17 and 6 against San Diego State and Creighton. He wasn't great against Louisville, but
that wasn't Maui. So what were the Maui? Give me the Maui log. Give me the.
I believe
Creighton.
The Maui log. Creighton was 17 and 6. He played 32 minutes against Creighton. Shot 50%. And then the next game against San Diego State, they won. He had 20 and 9.
Yeah.
And
might have been that
he
game.
played 40 minutes.
Played 40 minutes.
Yeah.
He had 29 against San Diego State Maui. Yeah. He was awesome. I don't know. That was my stray Arkansas thought I had. I don't know what's going on there. I haven't been paying enough attention, but I thought Trayvon Brazile would be in my life a lot more than he is. UCLA got a massive win over Wisconsin. Good for them. UCLA is Mick Cronin was sort of Dan Hurley light, we'll say. Where we could count on him having a soundbite. He's gone quiet. They've won 2 in a row now. Beat Iowa, but then Iowa's probably not a tournament team. I know they're on the bubble, but I don't think they are. I think they're very clearly not a tournament team unless we beat them. Then they are. I don't know. I'm kind of painting myself. I don't know what the
positive
logic
vibes.
I don't know what the logic would be. Do I want to gas Iowa up? So if we beat them, that's a good win.
Anyone we beat, we immediately.
Is a good win. Okay.
Propaganda.
Yeah, they beat Iowa, but the real thing is they beat Wisconsin, a good Wisconsin team. UCLA won the other night, and yeah, they're getting back on track because it looked like the wheels were falling off there for a second. Speaking of wheels falling off, North Carolina lost to Wake Forest, and Wake Forest isn't bad, but I think. Go ahead.
So the Mark Titus Show Twitter account tweeted this out the other day, and I would like to play word association with you.
Yeah.
After that loss, North Carolina is blank. What word would you use?
Cooked comes to mind.
Cooked.
Done.
Dead.
Dead.
Positive vibes only.
Positive vibes only, though. North Carolina is okay. So, in all seriousness, how does North Carolina salvage this season? Basically, win every game from here.
That's plan A.
The problem with the using the same thing we did with Arkansas, where it's like on the one hand this might be a gauntlet and you're going to stack up a bunch of losses, but on the other hand it's a lot of opportunities. That's my fear with North Carolina is that the ACC, and we said this about Duke, where I said Duke might be Gonzaga, like a diet version of Gonzaga this year because the ACC is so bad, and that worries me when Duke enters the tournament. Is like, who have you really played that's national title good? Thankfully they have the one game against Illinois, but otherwise it's like I don't know how challenged you're actually going to be for a couple months heading into the tournament. Same sort of thing with Carolina, where on the one hand, like the opportunity is in front of them to win a lot of games moving forward. Like there aren't good teams. They play Boston College next. Boston College is dreadful. Pitt, they play at Pitt, who's probably a tournament team, and a great opportunity for a win. They got to win that one. Duke is coming up next. You got to beat Duke at some point. You got to win one of those Duke games. Clemson is okay. Louisville's okay, but I don't think they play Louisville anymore. They already played them and lost. I think that was the one time they played this year. But along the way, you have like a Virginia team that could theoretically beat Carolina. I wouldn't be stunned if that happened. Virginia is dog shit. Syracuse is not good, and Syracuse could beat North Carolina. Virginia Tech is dog shit. Like there's so many of these teams that like I don't have 100% faith that Carolina is going to run the table against those teams. And if you lose one of those games, you are definitely dead.
Yeah,
and that's the fear. Is like I feel like they got to win about half of their There's a very obvious tier with the ACC. It's you throw Duke, you throw Clemson, you throw Louisville and Pitt, I would say, and then maybe Carolina's like trying to be in that group. And then there's the rest, which is just like a fucking anchor on
you
your.
Have to clean up.
You have to sweep the anchor teams, which they just lost to two of them, Wake Forest and Stanford. You have to sweep from here. You can't afford any more of these bad losses. And then I would say you have to win like half of the remaining games against the upper tier.
I think you're spot on with that.
And I mean they have the. You can always talk yourself into them having the talent, and like what if RJ just gets hot, man? What if RJ scores 35 a game for us? But does anybody actually believe that's going to happen?
It's the exact same thing you just said about Arkansas, except they have an easier like Arkansas, if we're talking glass half full, has a lot of opportunities left to win games. Carolina has a lot of opportunities to win games. But what have they shown you coming off a home loss to Stanford and now a loss to Wake Forest that says that they're going to sweep those games or that they're going to win half of the other ones? So my next word association, Carolina is cooked.
Yeah.
Which means Hubert Davis is
a lame duck. Yeah. Or
Really?
is that too many words?
You can do whatever you want.
Cooked.
If I was your English teacher, I would say, "Hey, Mark, maybe a different word."
Every word is cooked. Everybody's cooked. I think Hubert has to. I think Roy has to pull Hubert aside and just say like you got to step down, Hubert, for the good of the program. And I think he'd listen to Roy, but I'm worried that like this is what's so hard about hiring a guy who is one of your guys, who's family, as they say. Like this is like he's you're not hiring an outsider, you're hiring within the Carolina family. That's what makes it so hard. Is like what happens if the powers that be in North Carolina are like Hubert Davis isn't it. He's just not it. We've seen enough. Great year one where you run to the national championship, but let's be honest, as we revisit that, we were an 8 seed. Why were we an 8 seed in the first place? Why, you basically got hot for one run. You follow it up the next year. We're the preseason number 1 team in the country, and you missed the tournament. They made the tournament last year, sure. Maybe should have had a deep run. Like last year was a successful season, but by Carolina standards, it was probably just like an average, like this is Carolina basketball type season. You know what I mean? Like we're not hanging banners for this season. We're not. Right. We're just kind of this is what we expected Carolina. This year obviously is on track to be a failure. But what happens? So what happens if the powers that be are like enough's enough? We've seen enough. Hubert, you're not really recruiting well, and that 4-year stretch gives us no confidence that you're going to be able to figure it out moving forward. I think we want to fire you. And Roy Williams catches wind of this, and Roy Williams is like, you're not firing one of my guys. You're just not like Hubert Davis is one of my guys. If you fire Hubert Davis, I'm so fucking done with this program, and I'm gonna go support Wes Miller at Cincinnati or whoever else. What does Carolina do?
Wait, are you talking about Carolina or Indiana right now? Because it's the
exactly.
same thing.
It's the exact same thing with Indiana.
I think both teams deep down in their heart and fan bases and administrations realize, hey, maybe our inside guy, our inside hire isn't the right guy. But now how do you break up with the inside guy? If
Mike Woodson played basketball at Rice, and everything about him was the same except he was from like Dallas and then went to Rice for school and then had an NBA career and then was an NBA coach and then they hired him at Indiana for whatever reason, he would have been fired last year.
So,
and the same thing with Hubert, like they would fire, he would not be the coach at Indiana right this second. But what's keeping him around is like all of the things I'm talking about, like the political part of it all. And I'm curious about that with Hubert because I don't know which way that goes because I could see you could also make the argument that maybe Roy sees what everyone else sees and he's Hubert's mentor and he's like, Hubert, listen, you just get out now, salvage your career. Like I think you can go coach here. Go back to media, go to a smaller, go to East Carolina. I don't know what their situation is. I'm not trying to fire their coach, but I'm like, go, just like a step down. Find a school like that. Maybe do that or go back into media. Go be a scout in the NBA. I love you, Hubert. This is what I want for you. This is what I want for the program. I think it's best for everybody. And Roy makes that call, but I am worried that like that's part of the reason a lot of Carolina people think Hubert got the job in the first place is that Roy threw his weight behind it, and he's like, if I'm going to retire, I want this guy to be my.
So what you're saying is this hinges right now. The future of Carolina could hinge on is Roy Williams so attached that he doesn't realize he made a mistake, or is he willing to give tough love and be like,
yeah. It's basically Roy. I think my read on it is like Roy Williams is going to make the call, which is terrifying. I think if you're a Carolina fan, because I have no idea where his head would be with that.
It's interesting,
but they can't. Woodson's a little different because Woodson's a Knight guy. One, Knight is dead. Two, Knight was fired from the school and like was sort of right before he died. They kind of built a bridge and made amends. But Bob Knight standing at Indiana University after he was coaching there was not even in the same stratosphere as what Roy Williams is at North Carolina. So if Woodson is less of a, like, we have to appease this one guy and more of just like the idea of a bygone era and having a representation and a tie to the past, like it's a little hazier. So it actually makes it easier to just be like, fuck it, we'll roll the dice and see what happens. And you can kind of patch up the rest of the stuff behind closed doors and still have an attachment to the Knight area, even if you fire Woodson. If Roy doesn't want Hubert fired and you fired him, and you piss off Roy Williams, that's a bad spot.
Yeah, pitchforks.
That's a really bad. Like Carolina cannot afford to burn that bridge with Roy Williams. Not that he would. Not Roy's not like an asshole and vindictive, but you know what I'm saying. That like you need Roy Williams to be the ambassador for Carolina basketball. You want him coming to every game wearing his baby blue and fucking having his wife by his side, and they're standing up for the fights. So, like that is something that I think that program values greatly, and I'm curious to see how much that factors into Hubert Davis's job.
Yeah, off the Woodson discussion, shout out Live Events Lisa, who works at Barstool behind the scenes and does a bunch for us. She's a big Indiana fan, cooking him on Twitter.
Oh, really? She's going in?
She made a graphic. Signetti, Google me, I win. She put Woodson's face on it and said, Google me, I lose.
Oh! Oh, that's devastating.
It was tough look. Oh. It was a tough look. But positive vibe was only Indiana's a really good team, and if Indiana happens to beat you, that's totally okay. Even
tough.
if it happened to the Buckeyes.
Yeah. Indiana sucked. I don't think that's a loss for Ohio State that's going to age well.
Yeah.
Indiana looked like dog shit against Northwestern. Brooks Barnheiser, I don't know if you guys saw that clip. Brooks Barnheiser.
Am I reading that? Go ahead.
He wants to wants to die on a basketball court, I think. This guy, he's the one that when they were playing at Purdue, like his teeth fell out. Mm-hmm. You remember that?
Yes.
A couple weeks ago? And then last night, the breakaway like game clinching, it was already kind of over, but it was a dagger. He steals it and goes down and uncontested dunk, but his momentum swings his legs out from under him. Have you seen this clip?
Yes, I think I'm reading
hits
it wrong.
his face on the ground and then he puts that was like one of the more bizarre things I've ever said. Like it looked like it hurt like crazy. Like if he would have died, I would have understood. But he hits his head and he's like, I'm good. And then immediately he's like, I'm not good.
Yeah.
And then he's like, no, I'm good. And then he like walks off the floor. Like he was obviously concussed. It was just like a whole bizarre turn of events. And I was like, why does this keep happening to this guy?
Am I reading the reaction wrong on that clip though? So yeah, go check it out. You know, he goes in, he dunks, and he takes a very hard spin.
How much were they up? They were up like 5-7 or something.
Yeah, it was like 77-70. They were up 7.
They were up 7.
Put them up 9.
Yeah.
The narrative on the internet right now is like Luka Doncic doesn't like this takes white basketball back hundreds of years. Like I disagree. That dude was flying. I don't think they're saying this is a bad look for like the white basketball players. Like you're so unathletic and uncoordinated. I don't think you can call someone unathletic as they throw the ball through the rim. Now,
it's more I think you missed. Did you watch the whole clip? Did you see what happened after he dunked it?
I'm watching it right here.
Yeah, but did you see the part where he immediately lets go of the rim and hits his face on the ground? I think that's more what they were talking about.
But okay, so he flew for a little bit. He didn't know when to stop. All right.
No, he has like fake teeth. And then he also did that. I'm like, does this guy just have like a?
He's clumsy.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something about him, man. He just does not want his front teeth. He just like he'll do whatever it takes to get rid of those teeth.
Titus, I do have a couple quick user submitted things that they want to hear your opinion on.
Rapid fire.
Number one, title last show was that 22 ranked teams had lost in that span. However, Auburn went 2-0 without Janai Broome.
Yep.
Another just feather in their cap that they're just head and shoulders above everyone.
So the thing I love about this segment is that they aren't always questions. They're just people are just sending statements. Like, what, Auburn went 2-0. What was it? Was there a question in there?
Well, the whole theme of the show last time was how chaotic college basketball was for a week.
Oh, and you're saying Auburn, in a sea of chaos, is consistently great, and they're not only
Without their
great
best
without
player.
their best player. Yeah, feather in the cap. I mean, I've been an Auburn guy for a while now. I've been an Auburn guy since Jim Root was on the show, in the preseason, and he said Auburn was going to be good, and I was like, I trust anything you say, because I was like, I don't trust Auburn guards. That's been my talking point for the last few years, was like, how good are the guards going to be? And then he's like, the guards are going to be good. And I was like, that's all I needed to hear. So I'm in on Auburn.
So my response to this guy should be true.
True, yeah.
Okay.
No, I do love that. That's just if that is in fact what the segment is, it's just like a Duke fan that's like,
well, speaking of
about Duke, huh?
well, I'll counter with this. The second one is
About Auburn, huh?
he said the last time Ohio State won a national championship in football, Duke won the national championship in basketball.
That's right.
So the stars are aligning
That's
that
right.
perhaps Duke could be the team of destiny this year.
That's right. Did we win the national championship in football? Ohio State this year?
Sorry, hold on, I got to think back because Tuesday we beat Purdue.
That was still this year.
Yes,
Yeah,
we
we did.
So that's another true.
That was awesome, man.
All right, this is my favorite one, Titus. Last time you talked about how to fix the end of the game free throw situation. Too choppy. What about this? You may foul at the end of the game if you wish to send them to the free throw line, but instead of just 2 free throws and whatever and it becomes all choppy, the team gets to shoot free throws until they miss. So if they miss the first one, advantage you.
Oh, I like that idea.
You want to foul them, and those motherfuckers go out and make 50 in a row.
You might just add. It might be game over if you foul them. Yeah, if you foul them, if you're down 2 with 20 seconds left and you foul, you might lose by 50.
And
I imagine the gamblers out there will not like this idea.
Teams up 25 points after making 24 straight free throws, and just everyone just.
Yeah. I was thinking one wrinkle I would like to add would be if you foul, I don't know what the number is, 3 times in a possession. 3 feels right. If you as a defense foul 3 different times, so it's a foul, now they get to take the ball out, right? Mm-hmm. And then you never get the ball again because you foul them again. Mm-hmm. They take the ball. Now you fouled a 3rd time, and it's all one possession.
Right.
It should be a technical foul. I like that, like the course of the entire game.
You're saying if that happens, just with 18 minutes.
If you foul 3 times in one possession, like get your shit together, dude. Like, cause you're a team that's like you're trying to fuck up the game. Really, the only reason you're doing that is because you're just playing. You have like an Edey situation where you're guarding him and you don't have an answer, so you're just throwing goons out there to fucking hack him, or you're not playing bad. If you foul 3, maybe we up it. Maybe it's like 5. But like there needs to be something where it's like if you're fouling that many times in one possession, you got to be punished.
You're not
more than just like a.
And there's precedent to it because think about Major League Baseball. They implemented the rule where you can't throw over pickoff 3 times in a row. Hey, you're wasting our fucking time here. You can't do it anymore.
Stop fouling one. So that would help the end of the games though, because you can't just like if you have fouls to give or whatever, you can't just like keep fouling over and over. It's like you do it 3 times.
Ideas guy.
Yeah, I'm just an ideas guy. I don't know. They're not always good. I just put them out there.
Throw them out there. See what sticks.
And you people do what you want with them. All right. I think that before we get out, you want to talk. You got something, Cody? You grabbed the mic like you had something.
I know it's a positive vibe show, but I did write a Dan Hurley diss track.
I'm sorry, what?
I wrote a Dan Hurley diss track.
Ready? Here and ready?
Yeah, but it's a positive vibe show.
Hold on. Let's do a post show.
The show.
Show's over.
We're done with that, man. You can do it.
No.
What?
Should I?
Why would you say you have that if
I'll
you're not gonna?
I'll give you the first line, and you let me know if I can continue. Bald ass head and some.
Yes, you can continue. The answer is yes. My vote is yes.
Cody's on a heat check right now. I love this.
All right, I'm
I love this. No laughing. Go. Go.
Bald ass head and some glasses. Screaming at the refs while you're up 30. Dan Hurley, I'm about to give you a damn swirly. Huskies, Danny, you can suck these. You clinging merchant, I'm not buying what you're selling. Back-to-back champs, so why you always yelling?
That's it? You got more, don't you? You have more.
That's it.
It's incredible. I might need a diss track every Thursday show. We might have to end with a diss track. That was awesome.
That was good.
I wanted to talk about the football national championship, but
Show's
I don't
over.
think we need to. I think the show's over.
We'll talk about the next one, which will be probably next year.
The good thing is you're champs all year, so.
We are champions all year. I just my only note is that I do take it for granted. I think Ohio State football is obviously in the mix every year,
Mhm.
and I take for granted how I don't know. And then as we were winning the national championship, I was like, oh yeah, this doesn't happen all the time.
Well-
this doesn't actually happen. Like because like my wife, she's the outsider perspective in my life because she's like, you know, I'll sweat out games or whatever, and I'm nervous about, oh my God, we got Penn State, like maybe this is the year they beat us and all that. And she's like, why are you always losing? You guys win every game basically. You'll lose like one a year. Like why are you this way? And I guess maybe I don't know, because so then I got it in my head that like we do win more national championships than I guess we do. We really do, you know, because we're always in the play, we're always in the mix, we're always like national title caliber team. But then as we won it, I was like, oh yeah, it's been a long time. 10 years is kind of a long time, and it's a lot of people watching are like, fuck you, man, I'd do anything to see one in my life. But yeah, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying I appreciate it. I was like, oh, this doesn't happen all the time. I'm not taking for granted that we're going to win it next year or sometime in the next 5 years. It might be 20,
Well, odds are.
but also we're the favorite to win it next year.
That hit home to me too, as we are toasting with champagne in the gambling cave the other day, and Casey Smith's in the background being like, oh, I just wish I could feel this one time. And I'm like, all right, chill out. Winning a national title is not that.
Not that big, but it is.
But we've played for national titles in 02, 06, 07, 14, 20,
Yeah.
24.
Yeah.
And it's like, Casey, dude.
And that's not even the teams like 19 and 15 that were good enough to win it. And arguably, yeah. I don't know. That you spend all season like, I think we can win the national title, and then you come up, you don't even get to the title game. Yeah, I don't know. It's fun. It's something I don't want to take for granted. And I took the Final Four for granted. When we made it in 2012, I was like, I just graduated a couple years before, and I wasn't traveling to Final Fours for work yet because I was working for. I just wasn't like, my career wasn't at a point where they're like, yeah, we're gonna pay for you to go to a Final Four. So I didn't go, and now I look back and I was like, I was a fucking idiot. Like I thought I didn't go because part of me was like, I'm sure we'll go at other times in my life, and now I'm not so sure. But then again, maybe the Buckeyes will never lose again. We're red hot right now. Beat Purdue. Won the football national championship. That's the show. Fun weekend of college basketball. Michigan at Purdue. It's at Purdue or at Michigan? I think it's at Purdue. It's in Mackey Arena, I believe.
It's in Mackey Arena.
Friday. And then the two big ones Saturday. We have Houston, Kansas. That's in Allen Fieldhouse. So we'll find out what Houston's made of, because Houston again is dominating everybody except the good teams, and then they lose to the good teams. So they're in desperate need of a big win. And then Tennessee Auburn. That's the marquee game of the
get-in
weekend,
price
say.
right now on Game Time, Tennessee at Auburn, $400
Whew.
to get in the building. Tennessee
Whew.
at Auburn.
I want to get to that building. I want to get into. I've never been to a game at Auburn, and that arena looks awesome on television, and it will probably look awesome on Saturday night. I'll be watching that. I hope you guys watch that as well, and we will see you on Monday.